Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to have you in on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Will Wilson rocking it. Another Viking shirt for Will. I think there's 14 in his closet. It's all good. We are less than 14 days away from Nebraska, Illinois. We'll get to it. Coach Chinander, Coach Rude, Coach Dawson all spoke. A handful of players. We'll go through some interesting tidbits here from Coach Chinander on the defensive side of the ball. We'll spend some time with Greg Smith, some thoughts on the Big Red season with Greg. Also some recruiting from the standout from HailVarsity.com and magazine, Greg Smith, at about 20 minutes. We'll see what Alliance can mean in college football. When I hear the Alliance, I think of, forgive me, Star Wars. But we'll see. We'll see if the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC can sing Kumbaya pretty loud. Charlie McBride is with us, Mr. Blackshirt, in 1 hour. We'll get Coach's take here on the four-man front option with this Nebraska defense, the depth, the talent, and kind of getting that pass rush situation figured out. And then an extended sit-down, a lot covered with Jim Walden, Gentleman Jim. He was a quarterback for Coach Devaney, coached a lot of years at Washington State and at Iowa State, an assistant for Nebraska in the 70s. Was close and is close with Monty Kiffin, Warren Powers. So Gentleman Jim, the old gunslinger from Mississippi, the quarterback, going to be with us. Hall of Fame coach, get his take on a lot of things Nebraska related. Trev, now in the AD chair, year 4 for Frost, and what Jim's Pac-12 may be up to. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Those are the numbers. Can email. You're encouraged to do so, Chris at HailVarsity.com. Give us a find. Give us a follow on Twitter. Easy to do. And do so at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, at Willie on the radio for Mr. Will Wilson. And let's get to it. Will, between 105 and 115,000 beers sold at Memorial Stadium. I am the dude one of the few that did not go to Garth. What did I do Saturday night? I went and had beer and tacos with the wife. Ooh. And then a little ice cream, and then kind of crashed out. Golf outing for me Saturday. The weekend edition got going 7 to 9. So I didn't go down to Garth. I had a bunch of buddies that did. I was trying to get some truth and dispel some rumor about the bleep show that Saturday may have been with some amateurs out throwing cocktails too long and not calling it soon enough, stopping the fight, as they say. Yeah. So I'm interested in your take. You were slinging beers, you were bartending, you were doing radio, you were doing everything, Will Wilson. And true or false, your bar you're at, you almost got drink out of beer?
It was close. It was very close. Now, I don't know what happened that night. I worked during the day. I'm going to guess by the end of the night they were short on a few liquids. But you know what? It was fine. It was busy. But it cleared out. It was nice, man. Once the show started, everybody left. And it was just like, time to breathe.
Right, because you're just hammering drinks.
Exactly.
You're mixing drinks, you're pouring beers, you're slinging cocktails.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'll tell you what the disappointing part was after my shift. It was been like 7 hours since I ate something. So you know how it is after a bar shift. Have a beer, have a few shots. And after that, Schmitty, I was dizzy drunk. I had to call an Uber and get home. I don't know what the deal was. I need to eat. It was crazy.
So you didn't do the bread or the pasta pregame routine?
No, I went right to work.
You went right to work? I'm not going to lie to you. I had a vodka lemonade about 9:15 double, and it helped me later in the golf round because I was on fire in a good way. As on fire as I get.
Yes.
But so Will Wilson got after it on Saturday post Garth. But what's your takeaway? Buddies you know that went, friends that you have that checked it out, incredible show, was a lot of fun. That's the word. And for the most part, everyone said everyone was ready to have a great time. They were loud. They were proud. Kudos to you, Husker Nation. The beer setup, I mean, that was the kind of a trial balloon potentially for whenever that future is for Nebraska football and alcohol. See, I mean, Haymarket Park and PBA are already set up, right? Concert or Salt Dogs, you can go have a cold beer and it's all good. You can even get a little vodka tonic if you're in the Diamond Lounge doing a little Salt Dog action.
Good to know.
So all that being said, I mean, the day will come when you can get a cocktail at Memorial Stadium. We just don't know when that day is, but what's the feedback you've gotten?
I had some friends go. They said they had a great time. Of course, they said the lines were
massive.
But of course, that's even I think at Pinnacle Bank Arena sometimes. So
you're in line for a while,
exactly.
And you get up during the slow song you don't know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's strategic.
It's how it goes. But no, you're right though when you said people not calling it early. Hooksy was telling me after the show there were some people sitting on the curb. Doing a little stumbling.
Do one of those?
Yep.
Where you just got to go TV timeout.
Just take a break.
Sit on the curb.
And as your friends just leave you. Yeah.
See, that's happened to me before, but it was my own fault at the Dave Matthews Show where I got lost and didn't find my way back to the car, and I'm an idiot anyway with directions, so just kind of wandering lost in the gravel parking lot in Blue Stem, Missouri. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll leave the nitty gritty details to that evening, to the E! True Hollywood story narrated by Jeff the pharmacist, our friend and Denver fan. So long and short is I lost balance. I hit my left eye on the asphalt, and it was a week before my wedding pictures.
Oh, my God.
It healed.
Okay, good. I was going to say, what did it look like on the wedding day? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so there we go. So there's your Garth and football pregame roundup. Let's dive into some Nebraska football. And, Sammy McEwen asked a really good question to Coach Chinander. And let's think about this because Nebraska has had both. Nebraska's had, and we'll ask Charlie McBride this, do you want an elite pass rusher or do you want a lockdown corner? And let's go right to that here, cut 12, and let's chew on it a little bit, and we'll have to decide, does Nebraska have that on the roster right now? Here's Coach Chinander.
A couple guys in the NFL about this, and they both said corner, because we can scheme the pressure, but we can't scheme the lockdown.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. If we know we got a lockdown guy, we can bring extra rushers in pass situations. So I think as you're going out to recruit people, those are like the 1 and 2, 1A, 1B. You got to find some of these corners, and then you got to find somebody that can go rush the passer. In the NFL, it's a little bit of a different game. The quarterback's not running the football. The back's not getting out. They're not putting 5 out all the time in the passing game. So those pass rushers and those corners really get to affect the game a lot. They do at this level too. When you got a great corner, you don't have to worry about him. You can double somebody else on third down. You can send extra rushers. There's a lot of things you can do with a lockdown corner now in the college game. If you have a war daddy off the edge too, that changes things a little bit too, and you can dictate protections and those types of things a little bit. So I think those are kind of 1A and 1B, probably lockdown corners 1A, pass rushers 1B.
I don't disagree. Now, my question is what's harder to get? What's easier to get? Is it harder to get an elite pass rusher? I think so.
I mean, I haven't seen anyone since Sue,
Well, you got Sue, Randy Gregory. Those
Sure.
are kind of it. But the thing that, like, in my lifetime, my football life, all I've known for a lot of it, Nebraska's had both. Right? You've had Broderick Thomas off the edge. You've had Neil Smith, right? You've had Baron Miles teamed up with Dante Jones or a Trev Alberts or Tyrone Williams teamed up with a Trev Alberts. I mean, you've had elite like third round or Michael Booker first round or Ralph Brown fifth round, or you've had really great corners. Like there's not been like a Deion Sanders come through the building, like considered the greatest ever, or a Darryl Green, but you've had dudes that have had long, tremendous careers in the NFL. Tyrone Williams was phenomenal, is phenomenal, and then you got him on one side of the ball with you mentioned Sue. I mean, Sue and Crick together, and then meanwhile you've got Fonzie and Prince in the defensive backfield.
Deadly.
I mean, that's kind of all I've known.
Right.
Like honestly, just covering or cheering for this program professional life. That's what I've seen. That's what I have seen. And, you get a Wistrom or a Peter teamed up with, a Ralph on the other side. I mean, or a Booker. I mean, it's what Nebraska's had. And that's not been the case here the last 7-8 years. I think it's hard as all get out to get that elite pass rusher.
Sure.
I mean, you can go, there's just more corners available. So, and I'm not knocking or making it sound easy that, just go find a corner. No, it's hard to get that dude as well. But I think it's harder to get the elite pass rusher. But if you have the lockdown corner, then you got an extra whatever the time is. Quarterback wants to get the ball out of his hands in 3 seconds.
Sure.
Well, maybe the coverage makes him hold it to 4 or 5 seconds, right? And then pray to God your defensive line or a blitz can get home in time.
What do you think is more important in the Big Ten?
I think here's a little aside to that. Can I get an elite cover corner that's going to get off a block and go kill the ball carrier? That's the other thing. Nebraska with Coach McBride had and Bo. I mean, they had corners that were physical and could tackle. Prince and Fonzie didn't miss a lot of tackles.
Oh, yeah.
Nate Gary didn't miss a lot of tackles.
I even think back to Ciante Evans.
Yeah, Ciante was nice.
Yeah.
Ciante was really, really a talented corner, right? So can I get I think you need a corner that can cover like no problem at all. But I need a corner in the Big Ten that can get off its block and go smoke the ball carrier.
Tackle,
like one of the biggest plays in Nebraska football history was Ralph Brown smoking Jamal Lewis, forcing a fumble early in that 98 Orange Bowl. Ralph at 5'10", and God bless Ralph, haven't talked to him in a while, but he was pretty regular with this. Ralph got off his block, used his whole body, destroyed Jamal Lewis, fumble recovered. Nebraska stops a drive by Peyton Manning in Tennessee. That's 5'10" Ralph Brown getting off his block, killing Jamal Lewis, 2,000-yard rusher, bowling ball downhill with some side-to-side movement. And that's what you got to have in the Big Ten. A dude that's great at coverage but can get off the block and make a tackle. Penn State, Ohio State, honestly, Iowa, Wisconsin, all those back fours can not only cover, but man, can they hit? They can tackle. And I think Nebraska's there, because let's talk about the here and now. Let's talk about Cam Taylor-Britt. Is he a guy that can get to that level? And a little bit more from Coach Chenander here on Cam and his ability to become that lockdown.
Do I think Cam has parts of his game that he can work on? Absolutely. Do I think that he's done a nice job of putting himself into a position to be one of the top corners in the country? Absolutely. So he just got to keep up in the ante, and he can do whatever he wants. The potential's unlimited there, but Cam's a tremendous football player.
So Cam absolutely is there, and Cam's competitiveness, his ability to go one-on-one, not get beat deep, and he's no doubt going to be able to get off the ball and make a tackle. So you've got that ability. You've got that guy on one side. Nebraska's still in the process of shaking out between Clark and Tariq Johnson, and that's and Quentin Newsom. I mean, those are the three that they're trying to settle and side on defensively. Back to that pass rush. Let's hear that part of the equation here from Coach Chenander here as he gave a pass rush update. We'll hear about Caleb Tanner in just a moment.
We all know, we got to create some more pressure on the quarterback. The pass rush in camp so far has been much improved. Is it where we want it to be? No. We still got a ways to go, but it's been much improved from last year's same group, but much improved from this group to last group just by their growing within themselves.
Guy you're waiting to pop, and it could be this year, is Caleb Tanner. Where's he at?
He's probably still got to put on a little weight, but he's figuring out his body. He's figuring out his position. He knows what he can and can't do. When you come in as a highly rated kid out of high school, you got to kind of figure out what you can get away with in college and what you can't get away with. He could get away with about anything you wanted. Now it's, you're not as big as some of those guys, but you got speed on your side, so how can you use that to your advantage? And I think he's kind of figuring that out as he goes.
So, interesting question. We'll check in with Charlie McBride on that. Pass rush or lockdown corner. Excited to spend a few minutes with Greg Smith. But overall, Nebraska's spending a lot of time continuing to try and simulate game speed, really get the guys as prepped as humanly possible for what they're going to see a week from Saturday against the Illini. More good on good, so ones versus ones, and it's pad popping, it's physical. And you know what Bielema is going to bring to the party, aside from not knowing, the unknown is a clear advantage that Illinois has, but you're combing through all Wisconsin and Arkansas tape, and Bielema, just for old time's sake, with salt in open wound still, you'll see a jet sweep around the edge. Oh, yeah, flashback of the old Big Ten title game. Greg Smith's next on Hail Varsity.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio lesson?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Thanks for spending time. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Will Wilson, Charlie McBride, and gentleman Jim Walden with us in hour two. We say hi to Mr. Recruiting, Greg Smith, with us at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. And you read him with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Greg, what is up? How was the weekend, man? What do you know?
Oh, not a lot. The weekend was good. I actually went back home to Chicago, spent some time with the family. We got to watch the Bears and the Justin Fields experience with my dad. So I'm back with recharged batteries and ready to roll. How
was the preseason, man? How was Fields looking? You are all about the Bears. You've always been through thick and through thinner, my friend. And you got to be feeling good about the fact that you've got a quarterback for the first time since the punky QB.
Yeah, we got a quarterback that I can actually, I feel like there's hope. I always felt like with the Jay Cutler experience, it was always like, okay, he's going to do something great, and then there's going to be 5 horrible things that come after that. Right now, because Fields, has only played in one preseason game, we feel very good about him. Though things started off a little rocky with those 2 fumbles, he rallied to make a nice debut of the preseason over the weekend.
You know how sweet it is to watch him roll right, throw back on a wheel route to the sideline, and have a wide open receiver?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, in some ways, maybe Nebraska can pick up a couple of, or not Nebraska, maybe the Bears can pick up a couple of those receivers in next year's draft. They're going to have to start getting him some more weapons, but I like where things are so far.
Yeah, I saw some of his highlights, and he looked good. Coach Chenander, Greg, spent time talking and was asked the question by Sam about, okay, pick one, right? We all love this game. Give me a lockdown corner or give me an elite pass rusher, and I totally get the math behind an elite corner. But you're a recruiting dude. You talk to all sorts of kids. You follow the offers. You follow the amazing amount of offers that go out to pass rush specialists. And while the cornerback call is not a wrong call at all, go get me an elite corner, is it more difficult, in your opinion, as a recruiting guy, to go get an elite pass rusher versus an elite corner?
Man, man, it's tough because they're both really, really hard to get. And incidentally, like, it feels like the best of the best at each position go to the same schools, which is probably no coincidence that happens either. But man, it's tough to get either. I had a feeling, and it's funny, I actually talked to Sam about this after he asked the question. I had a feeling that people would kind of be taken aback by Chenander's answer, but you hit it right on the head with the math, right? It's the math of it with the corner, and I do think that the corner is a little bit more important only because you can change the math of everything. If you can bring more guys, you can disguise more pressure. So I do think that his kind of assessment of that is correct. And, you know, the corner is 1A in that group, but both are really, really hard to get because there's very few at each position.
Will and I were talking, and, you know, pre like professional life, growing up and going to Nebraska games, all I knew was you had both. You had both, and then you had a dude behind your 1A and your 1B that also was going to go to the NFL. Greg, that's what's like different and real about Nebraska football. They could have guys that in Nebraska's going about it the development way on top of the raw skill when you step in. There's just not a lot of Deion Sanders or Lawrence Taylor's kicking it, right? I mean, they get made a little bit in college, and then they get refined in the NFL, and then it's gold jacket time. But that's, with me, man, that's kind of all I know is Nebraska's had an elite corner, Baron Miles, Tyrone Williams. They've had an elite pass rusher, Broderick Thomas, Trev Alberts, Peter Wistrom, Sue, Prince, Fonzie. I mean, I know that I may be going a little liberal here with the term elite, but the guys I just listed off were great at what they did. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they were good against the run, too. They just weren't a one-trick pony.
Yeah, that's actually been what's really been unique about how Nebraska feels like has built their cornerback room over time. And honestly, what Travis Fisher is trying to do right now, right, is you want guys that can cover and can stop the run, because you almost have to have that in this conference, right? It has very much become that way because teams will find ways to scheme it up and to isolate those cornerbacks even in the run game. So you have to be able to do both. But also, I think something important was said there is that Nebraska being more of a developmental program that's not going to bring in guys necessarily that are going to be able to hit the ground running day one as that elite pass rusher, or in a lot of cases that corner, though it's easier to do it at the corner spot. You have to build that up over time. The problem with that, though, is that you have to get to that point to where you get it rolling. And like Wisconsin and Iowa have been very good at doing that. Michigan State, remember, for years and years under Mike D'Antonio, were really good at being able to do that. You just have to get to that point, and then you get to be able to build on top of that. And it just feels like you always have like a redshirt sophomore or even a redshirt junior ready to take over one of those spots. Yeah, you just reload, and you were right on about the no-fly zone. And Michigan State, when they were in their heyday, had really great back-level, third-level cover guys that were physical. And then we know the number of defensive linemen from Sparty that have gone into the league from 12 to 15. You know, I mean, they're just all over the league. Greg Smith's with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine recruiting insider at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. The Straight Up Breakdown podcast will drop tomorrow, and you can find that on Google Play, Spotify, iTunes. Subscribe to that. Greg kills it every week. So, Greg, a thought here on two names defensively to further this cornerback and pass rush discussion. Where do you feel, as you kind of gauge things, Caleb Tanner is at, and then what's the probability that the Cam Taylor-Britt, as good as he was last year, takes an even greater step this year to kind of fit that definition of a lockdown corner? Yeah, I think that Cam Taylor-Britt is close. I think that he's a guy that we've definitely seen him make the plays, and you've seen all the photos that one-handed play. You've seen some of the big-time interceptions. You've seen the blitz off the edge to force a fumble, that sort of stuff. You just want to see it from him on a game-to-game, quarter-to-quarter basis. Like that consistency in playing at that level and that high of a level all the time, I think is the next thing for him. And I think he's, as Chenander said today, he's well capable of being able to do that. He just has to go out there and do it. And I think that he's very close to being that lockdown cornerback. When it comes to Caleb Tanner, it's kind of now or never for him, not just because he's older in the program now, but you've also got other guys that are going to be nipping at his heels to try to take those snaps. You know that JoJo's going to get a lot of snaps at one outside linebacker spot. You feel pretty certain that Garrett Nelson is going to get a lot of snaps as well. And then Tanner is going to be a guy that can be used with his pass rush skills, but then even in that kind of specialized role, you have a guy, Feldarius Payne, who's hot on his heels in that. So Tanner definitely has to make the most of his opportunities right now. He still has the talent, but it's also about putting everything together and knowing that he has to continue to work to round out his game at the collegiate level to be as good as he was in high school.
Chenander's first comment was about, weight. And do you think Caleb's just still a little bit too light? Is he going 235? Is he 250-ish? I mean, where do you think his weight is at? Because, initial, first step, getting around the edge, Caleb's done well against some of the Pac-12 opponents, right? But when it comes to Big Ten, what type of pressure is he getting? And I think Caleb's a talented kid. And I think he's got a great attitude. But from the skill set, is the weight there to be a non-liability, to not if they do get your hands on him, the left tackle or right tackle, is he so light that they can just toy with him?
Yeah, that's going to be the issue because I don't think he's not anywhere near 250, and he's probably not at that 235, 230 level either. I don't know what they list him on Husker.com, but I would guess that he's under that 230 mark. And if that's going to be the case, then he's going to have to beat people with speed off of the edge and elite pass rushing moves, and that's what I'm going to talk about, rounding out his game. Because in high school, when you're a high four-star kid, you just run around everybody, right? You get to the Big Ten, everybody's fast, even the offensive linemen. They've got athleticism to them. Just look at some of the guys on his own offensive line to see that. And so you have to be able to develop that primary and secondary pass rush move to be able to really affect the quarterback and to be able to stay on the field, especially if you're going to be playing a little bit lighter than you would ideally want at that position, because he's kind of been light the entire time he's been in Nebraska. Remember, as a true freshman, he was underweight for the size at there. They just had to get someone out there, and he needed to get his feet wet to try to speed up his progression.
You and I can help Caleb out with just grilling for him.
Right. I mean, I'm sure if you just load up on that beef, you get some good corn. I know you got a lot of corn recipes floating out there now.
Oh, man.
You get that going, it'd be all good. Not to open that can of worms again.
Brother, I need an intervention. I've done corn on the cob. Because of the recipes we got from 2 Fridays ago, I have perfected. I have not grilled it. I have boiled it, and I'm doing the 4.5 minute thing with a little salt. I have not tried the lemon juice yet, but all I've done is just eat corn on the cob. I've gone to the gym, right? I've made sure I've gotten to the gym, but I am just killing it with butter, salt, and pepper, and I've been the happiest dude on my block because all I've done is just corn on the cob the last 3 or 4 days. So somebody needs to sit in and treat me like Christopher Maltasante.
That's a good thing, though. I kind of like it. I still haven't ventured back in. I need to do it, and I'm probably going to go start off with your salt and boiling. What you said, 4 minutes, and just go with the classics right there.
Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, and I had some for lunch, and I'm not lying to you.
Nice. So not even dinner. You're not even waiting until dinner. You're just going straight lunch.
Oh, I had one ear left and heated it briefly in the microwave. Had a little chicken Caesar salad. It's a nice balance, right? Go with the salad, and it's all good. It's all good. So, real quick, Greg, what's kind of on your radar here? About 30 seconds, recruiting wise for Nebraska.
Yeah, I think it's going to now really turn to getting some of those official visits set up. There's very few set up right now. And I think that actually, it's not necessarily Nebraska like looking bad. It's reflective of how few spots are left, right? I am operating with Nebraska probably signing 13 guys, maybe 14 for the 2022 signing class. So those spots are at a premium for those official visits. You don't want to just use a bunch of them in case you need to save some for the off season too. And you can focus in game in the 2023 and 24 class, getting those guys in town. But that's kind of the next thing that I've got my eye on, who's going to be coming in for official visits.
Greg Smith with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine recruiting insider at Greg Smith HV, the Straight Up Breakdown podcast. Greg, we'll talk soon. Awesome stuff. Good to spend a few minutes, bud.
Hey, have a good week. Thanks as always for having me.
There he is, Greg Smith. We'll check in. Jim Walden, Charlie McBride on the way.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Find us on Twitter at HailVarsity, at ESPN Lincoln. Greg Smith with us, ESPN On Demand, ESPNLincoln.com, where you can find the on-demand interviews. Also, ESPN Lincoln. The Twitter handle is where you can get that. Willie J. Will Wilson sitting in today, doing a great job. And coming up, Jim Walden, gentleman Jim, a great storyteller, and is a guy that still loves Nebraska football. So our friends at Hail Varsity sent us this rundown of the beer ranking, right? You've got the coaches and the AP polls that are out, right? Who's receiving votes? Who's in the top 10? Who's number one? No shock that Busch Light came in at number one. A lot of country music fans love them some Busch Lattes. I have refined my taste to also enjoy Busch Light. Dad started drinking Busch Light because a lot of his buddies are Busch Light guys when they come over to swim. And, the tall boy Busch Light tastes pretty awesome, especially on the golf course or at a concert.
Let's be real, Schmitty. They probably could have just had Busch Light, and they would have been happy.
It would have been fine.
Yeah.
But, listen, and I'm not knocking those who go with the Claw, but the Claw snuck in as a big-time choice. The Bud Light Strawberry Lemonade Seltzer.
How'd that do?
I think top 4.
Okay.
You had Busch, you had Mick Ultra. I'll drink Ultra, but I'm a wuss. I need a lime in it.
Okay.
Help give me a little umph.
Sure.
Bud Light, never been a Bud Light guy. That's not to thumb my nose at the Bud Light Nation. Coors Light in at 5, Miller Lite 6, White Claw 7. Listen, there's no judgment, judgment-free zone.
Of course.
Are you a White Claw guy?
I'm not. I didn't even know they were having that. I didn't even see that on the menu when they were tweeting that all out on Friday. Interesting. That must have been a late add-in. If it's there,
Player to be named later.
If it's there, I'll drink it. We'll put it that way.
Well, is it one of those that you'll only drink if it's the only thing there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. That's all
They're
good.
not bad.
Good. But you just have a higher.
I like the Mexican beers.
Yes, that's where I'm at.
They're great.
Give me a Premier, give me a Modelo, give me a Pacifico.
Yes.
And there's some beer I had in Omaha. I still can't pronounce the name. And it's not like too exotic. I've just got a garbage memory.
Is it Estrella?
Yes.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
Love it.
Yeah, because
Love
I was
Estrella.
asking you. Yeah, it's great. That's all I buy.
Very good.
I'm just a Mexican beer snob, I guess. I
Make
love
a good
Mexican beer. So when we talk about the Big Ten, the ACC, the Pac-12 Alliance getting together here, Dennis Dodd going to work with some investigation. This 3-team conference handshake could be the way to combat the TV rights negotiation and further kind of put the candle out on expansion. Because here's the reality. If you're the Pac-12 and you're the new commish, you don't want your best squads being rated and what you have left over merges with the Big 12, right? You don't want the have-nots of the Pac-12 being on their own island, and then eventually here comes the little 8, so to speak. And there's your new something. Let's all join at the hip and let's work out a scheduling setup. If I'm the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC, let's have strength in numbers with 3 leagues that are still on their own, but as a partnership with all 3 of those leagues, we can command a massive TV deal just similar to the SEC without having to go raid and then further get down these railroad tracks of just a 2-league super conference setup in college football, and everyone else turns into a group of 5. That makes sense. I mean, The Big Ten already prints money. The ACC and the Pac-12, very distant 3rd and 4th places for TV revenue. And the Big Ten, the SEC. Now, the SEC is going to get a bump with Texas and Oklahoma, but the Big Ten has already been out earning the SEC as is. I mean, this is going to bring the SEC up to Big Ten financial level. And all the cheese and wine dudes and gals that are PhDs and smart. And I'm not knocking you. I mean, but you're the ones that are the decision makers over athletics, the chancellors and administrators and council of presidents, right? I mean, those are the folks that just absolutely bank with research dollars that are granted by the government to come in. And it's an obscene ratio. What you think you make a ton of money for in football is a drop in the bucket compared to all the research money that comes in. But on the football front, you're going to want to see a matchup that is going to give you Michigan USC week 3 without having to go absorb. You can do it if you're the Big Ten, but that does no good for the Pac-12. SEC, you've got a few private schools that are pretty hoity-toity, i.e. Virginia, and you've got some juice behind you if you're North Carolina. But I mean, Florida State doesn't really fit. They're kind of like Oklahoma State academically.
Sure.
I mean, they're really a good ball school, but there's not a lot of Florida State graduates probably had their degree on their wall to display proudly.
It ain't worth it, right?
I mean, it's you go there to play ball. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Or pick me so I can get in. And I'm one of those kids. I went where I could be taken.
Yeah.
And thank God it was Nebraska. So TV money-wise, the Texas and Oklahoma, the SEC can now brag that it has approximately 10 of the best rivalries of all time within the walls of its conference. A scheduling alliance across the Big Ten, the ACC, the Pac-12, that's the best way for those leagues to approximate the total and enhance the TV inventory with new, compelling non-conference matchups. So USC Penn State isn't a rivalry, but damn, you loved watching it in the Rose Bowl a few years back. Michigan and Washington, non-conference setup this year, but typically you'd only get to see that on New Year's Day in Pasadena. If you're the ACC, you have Notre Dame. They already play SC. That's been a long-standing rivalry. Notre Dame's always played Stanford. They played the service academies. But if you're, I don't know, if you're, say you're, who do we want to look at in the West? Say you're Iowa. Iowa against McBride and North Carolina would be fun.
Yeah, it would.
All right. Or listen, Arizona State, Nebraska, some horrific memories there, but why not get even a quarter of a century later? So that could work. And, I mean, Oregon's really the draw. Stanford, Northwestern, they had a home and home not too long ago. This is not foreign for Big Ten teams. They've scheduled a lot of West Coast schools in the name of recruiting and trying to get kids out of California. And I think that's smart here. It would give you great, well, the rivalry's one thing with 10 of the best rivalries. Let's look at some not seen that often matchups, right? I mean, you're going to have Michigan and Ohio State. You have Duke, North Carolina basketball. You have USC, UCLA. The Big Ten still leads the playing field and its members with 54 million annually with media rights. Why would the richest league share its value, not only brand and financial, with the Pac-12 and the ACC? It's because of playoff access. The Big Ten and Pac-12 have each played one another in the Rose Bowl for the most part since 1902. And you still have the ACC Big Ten basketball setup that's going on. This makes sense. It can work. And it's the way to counter Texas and OU moving to SEC land. Hour one almost finished.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Email in from Bert. Your fancy beers are for sipping and having a meal. Others are for pounding in large quantities. Fair point. We were talking about the amount of beer rocked at Memorial Stadium. And pretty good stuff. Podcasts can find us. Hail Varsity is where you find Hail Varsity Radio, weekend edition, Monday through Friday shows. Sure to download those. Give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. We want to hear from you what you think. And thanks for listening. Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. So we're talking about that partnership that is being talked about, not rating, not poaching, but a scheduling partnership. That's pretty logical. That makes a lot of sense. Even like a Pitt in a Michigan State, right, would make sense for football because Narduzzi's the head coach over at Pitt. That would be good. A couple more thoughts here from Coach Chenander before we get to Charlie McBride. Let's get a little bit further in depth with that cornerback battle. You had Tariq Johnson, that is the five-star kid that is in. You got Quentin Newsome, that's kind of your favorite. He's been here the longest. Braxton Clark, also super talented. But they need to settle down on who's going to be opposite Cam Taylor-Britt.
That's another one that's still going right now. A lot of guys at the top, Quentin Newsome, Tariq Johnson, Braxton Clark, and you're seeing a couple young guys really come on too. Marquise Buford's done some nice things, and so has Malik Williams over the last week. So that position's got to shake out a little bit for us as well. They're all kind of those top three: Braxton, Tariq, Quentin. They're all getting reps to the ones right now. So that's a good competition.
So I love getting perspective on the other side of the ball from somebody on defense. Coach Chenander didn't get super specific, but did give an update on what he thinks about the Nebraska offense, how it's been going.
So far, I like what they're doing. I'm not going to give out a bunch of scheme stuff and all that kind of thing, but I like what they're doing. They're doing a good job of running that ball downhill. Those guys are tight ends, offensive line, physical up front. Those backs are running the ball really hard. They've got some nice install pieces that they haven't had maybe previously that I really like, and I like how the passing game's kind of built off some of those run actions. So I really like what they're doing right now.
Ty Robinson, he can do it all. Let's get some thoughts on his progress from Coach Chenander.
When you watch Ty last year, and this is me watching film, maybe not you guys watching the football game, you guys saw a lot of good things that he did. I just saw a lot of mistakes as a young guy. And a lot of times where nobody else in the stadium would know that maybe a run got popped because, a young guy made a mistake. He's done a really good job this camp of gap integrity, doing his job, knowing when to take a shot, knowing when he has to go play a block and he can't get knocked out. So he's just, the mental side of his game, I think, has grown a lot since we stopped the season last year to beginning the season this year.
Coach Chenander, good stuff from him today. More on that inside linebacker rotation from Barrett Rude. Special teams from Coach Dawson. And we are going to gear up Mr. Blackshirt himself, a Monday with Charlie McBride on the way, and then a sit-down with the gentleman, the old riverboat gambler, Jim Walden, quarterback for Devaney, assisted Devaney, had his own run with Washington State and Iowa State. Some thoughts on the Big Red, hour 2 on the way.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It's hour 2. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Will Wilson, as we are efforting Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. Jim Walden, Gentleman Jim's coming up in about 20 minutes or so. We'll spend time with Coach McBride here in just a moment. Lots to get into with Nebraska defensively, as we'll see what Coach McBride has to say about that. Numbers to dial up, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. The numbers to dial up. Can email Chris at HaleVarsity.com. That is where we email things. And now we have the coach. And we welcome in Mr. Blackshirt. We're getting closer and closer to kick off against the Illini. Charlie McBride with us, a Monday with Charlie. Coach, how's your Monday going?
Good. I just got done shoveling some snow, and I'm ready to go.
Well, I am so sorry. It's August and you have snow, but it might cool things down, sir. How are you?
Good.
Well, it is. It's that time of year, and we're gearing up and excited for football. And Coach, love spending time with you on Mondays. I'm interested here, and the question was posed to Coach Chinander today. What would you rather have, an elite pass rusher or a lockdown corner? And I spent time talking about, growing up in Nebraska, growing up in Lincoln, and you guys had a lot of both. you developed a lot of really good players. What would you pick, though? What did you want to bring in? Was it harder to get a pass rusher or harder to go get a high-level cornerback?
Well, it's hard to get a high-level cornerback, really. I mean, you've got if you play a lot of zone, it's a little different. But if we were a man-to-man team, so you really had to get a guy that was a good cover corner, because our scheme would allow him just to be one-on-one a lot and not get a lot of help, except from the free safety maybe at times. But a cover corner is a tough thing. I mean, even in the NFL or wherever you want to go, there are always people that are highly recruited type of people, and they work together. You always say it's a coverage sack, or it's a lineman sack. It's so a lot of times you'll hear people say, using the word coverage sack, meaning that they couldn't throw the ball and we got a sack, and because they couldn't throw it, you get the sack. So if you said, which one do you want? I don't know. You need both of them if you want to be good.
I want to kind of focus on some of the guys that spark my memory that were really good, and I'll call them lockdown guys: Baron Miles, Tyrone Williams, Ralph Brown. I'm leaving some out, and that's not intentional, but those guys were pretty big time game changers, weren't they?
Yeah, and we had a kid named Booker last year.
Michael Booker, yeah. Yeah,
Michael. He really played well, and he played, especially in the bowl game. I mean, that was his last game, and had an interception, I think, for a touchdown in that game. And it was, it's hard to imagine how many kids went through this. This process of changing from pretty much maybe more of a zone team to more of a man team. And that's, of course, when you get to the next level, you got to be able to do both. But some are major in one or the other, and some just, play man, and you have to learn to pass people off. You have to learn to do a lot of things, cover backs out of the backfield, and you may be a safety covering a back out of the backfield. You just don't know what the scheme is or what the defense calls for. So, but the thing that we felt like, because of practice time and things like that, was to keep the secondary as simple as we could and as few coverages as we could. But you have to make some adjustments in those coverages. So, that would what sometimes become a problem. So that means you have to make a check call, and we didn't like to do that if we could help it. because we want them to play, know exactly where they're going and do it that way. And again, it's the practice time you get. You can't do too much for them because you're not going to be good at anything.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, when did you go more man? And maybe you were always man. I don't know. Did you go more man when you made the switch to that 4-3?
Yeah, we did. We went to more man, and we played what they call a man-free defense. We had our safety free in the basic coverage part of it, and but that doesn't mean he isn't going to be out covering a guy, because if they start spreading them all over the field, you got to use them all. The thing we wanted to do was keep our linebackers in if we could and stop the run. We didn't like to displace our linebackers too good. We like to fool them, what we call step up in the line and do a lot of stuff. And we'd be in the line of scrimmage even though we were playing a zone maybe, because it takes a little work to do that. People are scared to do it, I think, because that's the work part of it. You have to recognize things when you're dropping. And, if you're standing still and recognizing something, that's one thing. But when you're dropping and reading something else, that's another one. But they get used to doing it. When they do it, they're good. It's kind of like the game's slowing down for me. You'll hear a guy say that. And when that happens, then you got what you're looking for. You got, somebody that can do that type of thing. And we fool by fooling. We mean that we're not coming a lot of times, And so unless the play or the scheme called for it, we were coming. But a lot of times we'd show pressure on both sides, and the quarterbacks get confused. They don't know which side they're coming from, and a lot of times don't know where to move their front to cover, to protect against the sack or the free man coming. So that was a scheme that we had, and you'll see a lot of people step up in the line and come out before the ball snapped, but we didn't do that, and that really is hard on people, especially with our defensive ends.
Charlie McBride's with us Mondays with Charlie, Hail Varsity Radio.
Which would be your outside backers in this game.
No, I get you. I wanted to ask you about some kids that were the pass rush side of things. When we look at a Neil Smith or a Broderick Thomas or a Trev Alberts or Grant or Jason, I mean, you would stack and stockpile and develop, and you had kids that were really good. I mean, it all came together where you developed really high-level guys. But was that something that it felt like you hit on a lot? You guys hit on a lot of really talented guys, made them into really great players. They put the work in, obviously, to become great players.
Right.
But was there a guy or two that sticks out to you that was just magnificent at getting to the quarterback?
Well, there were a lot of guys that did it with their strength and power, like a kid like, say, Jared Tomich.
Yes.
He did a lot of strength moves. When Neil Smith had long arms, he did a lot of things that would help him get separation from the defensive tackle quick and be able to just, with his speed, get by him, just run by him. Probably the best all-around rusher, when you really get down to it, was Trev Alberts. I mean, he had strength and speed and really good knowledge. He had great eyes. He anticipated the quarterback's moving a lot of times, which you could see. He probably didn't even know it, but you could see in the film that he had a feel for this quarterback's going to escape this quarterback because of pressure somewhere else, and so on and so forth. So he, could analyze what the heck was going on a lot, and that was something that's hard to find. That's kind of an instinctive thing, like your great linebackers you had, like the Butkuses and these guys that, you can line up and they could run a 5-3 and still tackle you on the sideline.
We just knew
it was, God-given ability, and that's what some guys have. some guys you have to work with. The biggest thing a guy could have, a young guy, is being able to explode off of his move. A lot of times you'll see guys make a good move, but they can't accelerate off of that move. And that's what you're looking for in high school. If you're looking for a guy that, has something like that, there's a young kid I looked at on film that's, I think, a committed kid. I don't know his name, but the big, tall kid, 6'5", and this kid's got some stuff that I look at when I look at, him on film. I look at some of the things that I, saw in Grant Wistrom. I mean, he could really accelerate. Once he figures out what's going on, he'd go. And so that's what it takes a lot of times. And a lot of times you have trouble rushing the passer because you plain don't put them in good positions. You're dependent on your coverage all the time. And, I always said, if you, like we did, we live by the sword, you die by the sword, too. I mean, we get beat, sometimes. I mean, that's not, when you got a guy out there one-on-one, and I don't care how good he is, they'll find a way, if they get enough time. And that's where your front comes into, play. I mean, it's really important.
It's a work. It's a collaborative effort for sure. The secondary and the defensive line.
No question.
Charlie McBride's with us Mondays with Charlie. Coach, I know you've always been there for different coaches and staffs, and just wanted to kind of get your take here on Coach Chenander. You've spent a lot of time with him and talking to him. You even gave him a belt buckle.
I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he did. He he's got a responsibility, and it's not easy. I mean, it wasn't as smooth. I mean, we won a lot of games, but it wasn't a smooth run as you think. I mean, the fans were. I mean, I had times where I had guys on the radio even saying that I ought to be fired, and we're winning 9 and 10 games a year. Jeez, I'm going like, what do you have to do? I can't fly. It's a matter of a lot of times it's a matter of we allowed too many yards, and that's true. But we won because we were a good offensive team and we could wear people out. And that's why, sometimes I would say, our best defense was our offense, and because we weren't doing well. And we've had some 300, 400. I guess we had a 400-yard game one time, Kansas or Kansas State, which, that was good enough for me getting my walking papers.
They didn't score that much, though, Coach.
No, a lot of teams they don't do. Now it's kind of the name of the game. It's kind of sad. There are a few teams though that really depend on the run, and I notice a lot of the coaches on offense are saying that we with our passing game we can develop our run, and that we developed our running game with our running game we developed our pass.
Sure.
Just the opposite. And and that's what those are the things that they did such a good job up in the box upstairs, was they recognized people supporting too quick or something on a play, and then run the play action pass, and somebody run by them. And if you look every year, we might be last in passing, but you also look and we'll be first in touchdown passes. So, that's something people fail to look at a lot of times.
Well, the yards per catch was always pretty amazing, where you'd have a tight end get deep or a wide out on a go route off play action. It was pretty special. Coach, got about a minute left. Are you gearing up for the opener here? Are you getting excited?
Yep. For a while there, I didn't know if we'd even have any electricity. We had a terrible storm. We have a lot of damage around here.
Everything okay with you?
Huh?
Everything okay with you? Your house?
Yeah, everything. We don't have enough. We got some behind us that it could be bad, but not on our property. But a lot of people have crushed roofs. My brother got the one fell right on his roof, and one side of the lake got pretty destroyed. I know that one guy, just to give you an example, had to get a crane and so forth to get into his property, and it cost him $20,000.
Jeez.
So, I mean, that isn't fooling around. And this house is, $1 million home, but it's trees all over the place.
Well.
And the travel was bad, and the internet just came on yesterday.
Jeez. Okay.
So from about 4 or 5 days.
Well, we'll be thinking of you guys up there for sure. I'm sorry to hear about the storm.
We're doing good now, though.
Well, you stay safe, and thanks for jumping on with us, Coach. It's awesome to chat with you. We'll be ready for game week next week. How's that sound?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready. Okay, guys.
Take care, Coach.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye now.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. Coach McBride's probably just going to throw those trees aside, help out his neighbors. Jim Walden, the gentleman, on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Football season's here. Let's talk to the gentleman, Jim Walton, longtime coach, Hall of Fame coach, and, of course, with Coach Devaney for so many years. Coach Jim, how the heck are you?
Well, I'm just right. I'd have a little less smoke out here, Smitty, if we could if we get through the forest fire season. I think I'll be a lot better. But look, football's here. What's not happy when that happens?
No, I know, and I know you're kind of in the Pacific Northwest region, and also kind of in the gorgeous part of Idaho. How bad's it been for you guys from where you're located?
Well, it was really bad for about 2 weeks because we are so close up to Canada, and Canada and British Columbia is having a boatload of fires, and that goes along with our own. Between the northern part of Washington has been we here in the state of Idaho. Our threat has been fairly minimal. We've had a couple, but most of the smoke is coming out of BC, Alberta this way, and in our own Washington area. It's just been really brutal. But we had about a 4-day reprieve last week, and it looks pretty good today. So a lot of summer athletic events have been called off because I'd hear if the threat goes above 150, they call almost anything outdoors. So, gosh darn it, between smoke and pandemic, it's a constant battle, and not to say what's going on in Afghanistan. So it's just really a mess right now.
No, Jim Walden's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, a lot to think about. A year ago, we're playing tug-of-war about having a season. We fast forward to now, we're going to get a season, and that's outstanding, and we're going to get a season with a crowd. And Garth Brooks was just here at the stadium, 90,000 plus. I saw that 105,000 beers were sold at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, some things never changed, Mitty.
So things got kicked off ahead of the Illini for Nebraska football fans. But let's start off here as we look into year 4 with Coach Frost, and there's some pressure, there's some progress that needs to happen, and the teams have been so close in a lot of one-possession games. And kind of get your take on Frost in year 4. I know you followed him when he was at Oregon. I know you followed him at Central Florida, and you've always kept an eye on Nebraska.
I'm very positive about what he's trying to get done. I for one, didn't put very much emphasis on anything last year, if you want to call it. Sure. I know they played some games, but I have to tell you something. Football players are entertainers, and they love to show off. And, you practice your whole life to make it to the big league, so to speak. So then what's the next thing? You want to perform. There's nothing better for a performer than to have a full house. You talk about Garth Brooks. I guarantee you're going to get everything he's got. But if you told Garth Brooks he's got to go out on a stage, perform in front of nobody for 2 hours, you're not going to see the same impetus and the same energy that if he had 70,000 people, or whatever he had. And so football players are the same. College football players want the fans in the stands. So as far as I was concerned, last year was just an exercise in long-term spring balls. It was a thing you got to find out about your players, got to move a few of them along. It was an evaluation process. We played some games and we did the national championship thing and all that. But to me, I hope that everything we're seeing with stands and fans in the stands and the mask thing going away, we got to get back to normal. I understand people can die. What else is new? People have been dying of pneumonia. They've been dying of cancer. They've been dying of a lot of things all our lives. But we cannot keep subjecting our young people to these things. So I answer your question. That was a long-term version of I think Scott's got a chance to make this thing go. I think, in my opinion, he took over a pretty flat-out program. Mm-hmm. I don't think the people of Nebraska maybe didn't have enough of a clue, didn't want to believe that it was as bad as it was, because you just don't want to believe that at the University of Nebraska, that your program's going to get that far in the dumps. Mm. And so I think he's had a tough time trying to pull the pieces back together. And when you lose a little of like Nebraska's last 10 or 12, 15 years, you lose some of that aura of that you always had, that people were glad to hear Nebraska knocking on the door. This is a recruit from Nebraska. Oh, wow. And I think some of that is dimmed a little bit, and it'll take some time to get it back. And so overall, I don't think he's done it anywhere near as much as he would like to have done, mm-hmm. but I think he's done a better job than people are giving him credit.
Jim Walden's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Hall of Fame coach, Washington State, Iowa State, and, of course, quarterback for Bob Devaney out at Wyoming, and assistant at Nebraska in the early 70s. Coach Walden, I love your perspective on things, because there's not a lot you haven't seen or done in the world of college football, and I love your take here on where Scott's at. And, Nebraska, you said something really right on, and that was the dimming, right? And it feels like there's been a puzzle, right? Like whatever puzzle you want that picture to be, seems like pieces have been taken away here almost the last 20 years just through change and transition and turnover. What's your takeaway here with Trev Alberts? And I assume you tried to recruit Trev when he was at in Cedar Rapids?
Well, yeah, we knew he was. It wasn't a very big effort. We knew where he was going.
Gotcha.
But overall, it's keeping it in the family. Yeah. I hope they consulted with Tom Osborne about that. Yeah. I'd like to think that Coach Osborne should have some. I don't think Tom Osborne would ever ask anybody to let him do something. He would never stick his nose in anything, not the kind that I remember. Mm-hmm. But I think he would give you his opinion, and I hope they ask for it. I hope that Trev will do a great job. As you well know, I thought it was just. I made no hit. I didn't make a scene, but I didn't. I didn't like your last hire. I'm trying to be nice.
No, I get you. I get you. Well, you know, Coach. Coach, you know Moose better than most. I mean, you worked with him for what, 30 years?
Yeah, I knew him for about 31 years, and I watched what he did here at Washington State, and I knew that, in my opinion, when he left Oregon. And came up here, sat out a couple of years, and then got the job here. It was only an ego thing for him to go back into. He should have never gone back in, but Bill wouldn't let his ego say no, because that was his school. He went to school at Washington State, but he proceeded to run him into a $100 million debt. Yeah, he did a couple of good things. He helped finish up a stadium that Jim Sturck had started, and I'll give him credit for that. But he never had the energy that it took. And then when I found out he was going to go to Nebraska, I thought, well, maybe they don't have the financial problems that WSU has. They don't have a fan problem. He'll be all right. But I didn't think it was a very good hire. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not surprised that it's turned out like it has. And hopefully Trev will do a great job. But he'll be motivated. I think that he will want to do it. From everything I hear, with the exception of having to drop some sports, one, of course, being wrestling at Omaha, which made a lot of people mad. But hey, they don't understand, that sometimes finances, you have to do that in this day and age. If they can't support themselves and the rest of the sports are not making enough to do it, you have no choice but to let people down. So I don't think that'll be a problem for him at Nebraska, hopefully. And other than that, I think he'll be, for everything I hear, he's a quality young man, and hopefully he'll do a good job.
Jim Walden's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Trev's pretty locked in, great communicator. Obviously, is known in the media with his time with ESPN. But Trev's been around a lot, and that was a tough spot he went into at UNO. And I know there were some unpopular things he did, and now Trev's able to kind of gauge the landscape and try and get football going again. Coach, I wanted to get your take here on the game of the century. Norman, Oklahoma is the site for Week 4. Nebraska going to be down there, and we're going to be down there as well. I can't wait. We're going to be doing a show from Billy Sims's restaurant, so it's going to be a party. But take me through your experience, and also Coach Devaney. Huge game, seminal moment in Nebraska football, and you were on the sideline as an assistant for that game of the century, 71.
Well, to start off with, it was the most intense time, and all of us as coaches at that time were trying to laugh our way through it, but it was a nervous laughter. We're all trying to be positive, and we were coaching our kids as hard as we could. We knew down deep, and I know Monty Kiffin would tell you the same thing, and Warren if he could, that we knew we had a great defensive team. We knew we had a solid offensive team. It was, I think, if you look back at their records, we were probably a football team that was averaging about 35 points a game. In those days, that was a lot of points because we didn't throw the ball 50 times like they do today, and we're only allowing about 6 points a game. So, but when you looked at Oklahoma, you were almost looking at yourself. They had a great defense. They had outstanding offense with Mildred and Pruitt and all those guys and the Selman brothers. I mean, it was just a phenomenal football team. And whether you liked it or not, you always see, sometimes this funny thing about coaching, you can see their nose guard, and you may think, Selman, what a great player. Mm-hmm. But you didn't know about, you don't think about Richie Glover. They were doing the same thing looking at him. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very nervous time, and part of it was, I've said this before, was the length of time between our last game and the time we played OU. That long period of time from the last game before Thanksgiving, the last Saturday before Thanksgiving, till all the way over till Thanksgiving Day, it was an eternity, seemed like. That was 11 or 12 days that went on. And then on top of that, the Saturday prior to Thanksgiving, everybody's arch rival games were played and done. So Sunday morning, the media world, not excluding NFL, the college media world woke up with Oklahoma and Nebraska looking them right in the face come Thursday. And so for 4 days, it was just massive. And after a while, your kids get caught up with your players. You're having to watch what your players are doing, what they're saying, what they're eating. You start getting suspicious of everything. And so it was, to say the least, really nervous.
Jim Walden with us, gentleman Jim Walden, former quarterback for Devaney, assistant for Nebraska in 71. We're talking Nebraska-Oklahoma game of the century. That celebration coming up here the fourth week. But more with Jim Walden as we get to it here. Hour 2 at Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
A few more minutes. Jim Walden with us, legendary coach, Hail Varsity Radio.
Coach Devaney, you asked about him. He always handled things. It just rolled away. He knew how to deal with his players. He kept them at a level, kept us probably calmed down, to say the least. Yet you knew down deep he was nervous as he could be. And so overall, he handled it like you always expected that he would. And he just made it look like it's just not just another game, but an important game. So let's get ready. Let's do what we're supposed to do. And that's just the way he did it.
Jim Walden's with us. We're talking talking game of the century, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Coach, did you relish that opportunity, that moment? Nebraska had been good. You were knocking on championships before that moment, but the eyes of the college football world, ABC, Johnny Rodgers, the return, I mean, so iconic. Did you enjoy it, or did you enjoy it when it was done?
No, I don't think any of us enjoyed it until it was over. I mean, we enjoyed it 10 years later when we look back and see how magnificent it was, and the whole overall thing, and every football player that was involved in that day, and every coach, those that have said are still alive, which is not many, would tell you it was a magnificent thing. But it was after it was over. You were so nervous and hard-working and trying to be calm and positive and confident. But you know what? When you look at Jerry Taggy and Van Brownson and Johnny Rodgers and Jeff Kinney, and you look at the defensive line of Glover and Harper and Johnson and Dutton and Jacobson, and you think, hey, you know, we're not bad. And yet down deep, you could almost call the same names from Oklahoma. And so it was, to me, and I've said it before, it's the greatest. Oklahoma University is the greatest team in history not to be a number one in terms of to finish second. It's the best second-place team probably in history. I won't say, I don't say that, but up until that point. Let's just go to that far. In 1971, there was probably 20 years prior to that OU would have been number one team in the nation. And so here you had two unbelievable teams coming together with such great athletes. And three guys that I'd like to give some credit to, too, Schmidt, that doesn't get enough credit. Tom Osborne had a feeling, and so did Carl Selmer and Cleese, that we didn't have the offensive linemen that we were used to having going into the 70 season. Tom Osborne went to California and recruited three football players for us, Dick Rupert, Keith Workman, and Carl Johnson, and they hardly ever get their names mentioned. But if you look back at history, you're going to see those three junior college football players were starting five on the 71 football team. And I believe with all my heart that as many great players as we had, as many hard-working Billy Oles and wide receivers, holy cow, good players. But if we don't get those three guys out of California to fill our bill in the offensive line, we don't win the national championship. That's how important I think those three guys were for our football program.
Man, I knew there was some JUCO infusion for 71, but you just nailed 3/5 of the line. and
they were good players, and boy, it brought a lot of. It just filled right in. It filled us up, and they did a great job for us.
Jim Walden's with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Coach Walden, want to get your thoughts here on the next kind of move for college football. You had Oklahoma and Texas. They are off to the SEC. And I was kind of wondering if the Big Ten would maybe go shopping for some Pac-12 teams and kind of merge it, or, what's next here. And it sounds like that there might be an alliance between the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten when it comes to scheduling as a counter to what the SEC did, and that's breaking up the Big 12 potentially here as soon as this goes through. What's your gut tell you with the next move, the next wave for college football? Do you think an alliance is a better way to go than more poaching? Yeah, and I'm going to step on somebody's toes, and I'll probably catch a lot of flack for this. But if I was a Big 12 conference, I'd wave at Texas and say, good riddance. I'm sorry to see OU go. They've been a family member of the old Big 8 for years and years. They will be missed to me. It's just part of the Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa State. The old Colorado and Nebraska was a wonderful, wonderful league. The 8 was the best it'll ever be. And OU was a part of that, and a big part. Texas, as far as I'm concerned, all Texas wants to do is be bigger than they they spend their whole time trying to be the big dog. So they may be about to get what they deserve, as far as I'm concerned. And some of those southern teams down there don't give a damn about Texas, and they ain't going to worry too much about, and they won't be able to tell. I don't see Texas telling Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and South Carolina how to run their business. And Texas has a tendency, from what I understand, to do that. So in some ways,
I don't even know if it's a bad thing. Now, here's my answer.
Mm-hmm.
I would take those 8 schools and the 10 out here, and I would, or the 12 out here, and I would form what I call 5 pods. And I'd play an interlocking schedule in football, and then I'm not smart enough to figure it all out for basketball. But let me tell you what else it means, Smitty. Take the 4 in the Northwest. You take Oregon, Oregon State, Washington State. Put 4 in SoCal, the 4 SoCal schools, and the 4 Missouri, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State. Everybody in those teams, you play all 3 of those. That protects all your game rivalries, your big rival games. Every one of them's got a rival game in that. So you play all 3 of your pods, and then you play 3 more teams in the rest of your pods, and then the conference within your conference. And then or play 2 more. That'd give you 5. And then you schedule 2 games in each pod in the Big 12 conference. That would give you somehow or another an 8, 9, or 10 schedule, however you want to do it. You can play 5 out here and 4 back there. You can play 3 plus 2 plus 4. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You would have a quad. Let's say you had a pod of Kansas State, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State. That's a pod. Now you put the rest of the Texas schools in a pod. So you got 5 pods of 4, which is 20 teams. You play 4 non-conference games, or 4 conference games in the Big 12. You play 5 in the Pac-12. And so, or the other way around coming this direction. So you're playing an interlocking schedule, and you can break it down into conference champions. You'd have a conference champion matchup, and then let the bowl games go where they can. That's how I see it as far as the football concerned. And then it would be like you're in the middle of, you have a 20-team league, but you're not necessarily in the league. You're just playing inter-conference games. The Pac-12 plays 4 Big 12 teams, and the Big 12 plays at least 4 or 5 out here. So you could make it work, I think, fairly easily. And boy, just what a fun it would be. You got Iowa State, for instance, playing UCLA at home, playing USC, playing Washington. Iowa State going to USC, or going to Arizona State, or going to Colorado. So you'd have all that interlocking, and to me, television would eat that alive. They would really love it, because you'd have some pretty good intersectional games between Stanford and Texas Tech or whatever. So I think it'd be a great league if you just combine those two units.
Well, we'll see if it happens with what's left over from the Big 12 and old Big 8. Time will tell with that, but I know there's going to be some movement somewhere, some way. Coach, I can't wait to give you a call here later on in the season. I always love spending time with you. Thanks for a few minutes today.
No problem. Keep it up, man, and go Huskers.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, busy show tomorrow. We are excited, man. Going to be on the road out at Cunningham's Journal, on the lake, out at Kearney, and we love our friends in central Nebraska, ESPN 1460, 1550, 102.1, 102.7. And it's been so much fun being on the air out there. It's also been fun hanging out, spending time with Doug Duda, legend out there and everywhere. Just phenomenal broadcaster. So Duda, there will be a Doug Duda appearance at Kearney's, at Cunningham's Journal on the lake. We are doing a road show, Hail Varsity. Again, we love getting out to Kearney. We were at the downtown Cunningham's Post, Colorado a couple years ago. In 19, we are going to be on the road tomorrow, Hail Varsity Live from Cunningham's Journal on the Lake in Kearney. So come on out and say hi to Duda and wave at me. And, yeah, I'm hoping for a deck spot. And if that's not doable, if it's inside with their massive TV setup, God love them.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
And I'm flipping through the website where there's like street tacos and there's beef tips and there's like fudge brownie with ice cream and yeehaw.
Yeah.
We'll talk some football tomorrow and just soak some sun up.
Grab your pole and maybe cast a few lines in. Huh?
No kidding, man. Every time I head out to central and western Nebraska, I think of my grandma and grandpa out in McCook. And we are actually going out in the morning for a memorial service for Aunt Charlene. So I get to head back west and say goodbye to her. She was incredible. But no, we're heading out west and little Edison, Nebraska, man. Driven by it 1,000 times in my life and get to go tomorrow. Not for it's not joyous, obviously, but we'll smile and remember Aunt Charlene and cousin Chuck and cousin Kathleen. So it's it'll be nice to be out central western Nebraska, and big thanks to Cunningham's and Doug Duda for getting us hooked up for an afternoon show, a Hail Varsity on the road in Kearney. Cunningham's at the lake. A reminder to buckle up. I'll be buckling up here in a second to head west. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury by up to 60%. Your best defense in any crash. Buckling up, brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Fun show today. Great stuff from Charlie McBride on the question Sammy McEwen asked about, do you want an elite pass rusher or an elite corner? We heard from Coach Chenander to kick the show off. Greg Smith was awesome to talk some football and recruiting. Coach McBride in hour 2, and then an extended sit-down with Gentleman Jim Walden, longtime coach. We're talking a decade at Washington State, almost a decade at Iowa State, and was an assistant at Nebraska through those early years with Devaney. Played for Bob Devaney in Wyoming, but from 69 through 72, he had Jim Walden as part of the Nebraska staff with Devaney, with Coach Osborne, with Warren Powers, with Monty Kiffin, and Jim's just kind of giving it to you straight on what he thinks, and he's hopeful and thinking things will be all right for Coach Frost and Trev Alberts. And I just got a kick out of him saying, well, we know where Trev was going. We recruited him. We ain't getting him. So that was pretty good. Will Wilson, you rock. We'll check in tomorrow. Have a good Monday night. Back at you tomorrow from Cunningham's Roadie on the Lake in Kearney. Talk to you then with Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.